On the 8th of December, 90-year-old Margaret Keenan from the United Kingdom became the first person in the world to receive a COVID vaccine outside a clinical trial. Following emergency use authorization in the UK, Pfizer became the first vaccine maker to roll out its COVID vaccine in the West. Apart from the UK, Pfizer has also received emergency use authorization from Bahrain, Canada, and most recently from the US. The pharma giant submitted a request for emergency use in India on December 6th. In a flurry of activity after this move, the Serum Institute of India and Bharat Biotech did the same for their vaccine candidates. So what exactly is emergency use authorization? Who sanctions it? And what are the conditions under which it is sanctioned? I'm Suraksha, and in this week's Coping with Coronavirus, we are going to answer these questions. Pfizer and its German partner BioNTech were the first vaccine makers in the world to submit an application to the US Food and Drug Administration for emergency use authorization in the United States on November 20th. The US FDA defines emergency use authorization as a procedure to allow unapproved medical products to be used in an emergency to diagnose, treat, or prevent serious or life-threatening diseases when there are no adequate approved and available alternatives. In a podcast released in October, Joshua Sharfstein, the former Principal Deputy Commissioner of the US FDA, said that before a EUA can be issued to a vaccine, it must determine that the known and the potential benefits outweigh the known and the potential risks of the vaccine.
That is a minimum requirement. It is not the standard for an authorization. You can have that requirement met and still not give the authorization. You still need a good reason to do the authorization.
According to guidelines, a vaccine must show 50% reduction in coronavirus infection in order to be called effective and a strong track record through at least a median of 2 months of follow-up time. Pfizer in its press release said that it had achieved the safety milestones set by the US FDA with a vaccine efficacy rate of 95% at preventing the disease when measured a week after participants are given its second dose. In an advisory committee meeting that was livecast globally on December 10th, 17 experts in the FDA's advisory committee voted in favor of Pfizer's vaccine. The committee, comprising vaccine experts, industry representatives, and a consumer representative, considered the data submitted by Pfizer along with other questions such as how many EUAs the FDA would grant and if those volunteers receiving placebos in the current Pfizer trial could opt for the vaccine. However, 2 days before the FDA could take a call on the EUA, the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Authority in the UK approved the Pfizer vaccine for rollout. While the UK relies heavily on the pharma company's assessment of the vaccine, the FDA committee has often been compared to a science court. Pfizer and BioNTech were the first to seek emergency use authorization in India as well.
Pfizer has conducted trials in US and other places, but Pfizer has not done any trial in India. My understanding is that Pfizer wants a waiver on the bridge trial that India requires based on safety and efficacy data from other locations. Now it's up to the regulator to decide whether they will grant this or not.
The regulator that Dr. Shahid Jamil is referring to is the Central Drugs Standard Control Organization, which is in charge of approvals in India. While Pfizer has not conducted trials in India, neither the Serum Institute of India nor Bharat Biotech have completed phase 3 trials in India.
They are going with early interim results to ask for emergency use approval. And I feel this has simply been triggered by the Pfizer application. If the Pfizer application wouldn't be there, these two applications also won't be there.
In its first review meeting, the CDSCO Subject Expert Committee has asked both the Serum Institute of India as well as Bharat Biotech to provide more data before it arrives at a decision. The SII has been asked to present the clinical data from the Oxford trial with whom it is developing this vaccine. The SEC has also asked for data regarding the phase 2 and 3 trials from India. Bharat Biotech has been asked to provide safety and efficacy data from its phase 3 trials. Pfizer, which was the first to ask for EUA, has asked for more time before making its presentation. India does not have the equivalent of an emergency use authorization so far, but the CDSCO has released guidelines that the primary efficacy endpoint estimate for a placebo-controlled efficacy trial should be at least 50%. In addition to this, the new Drugs and Clinical Trials Rules 2019 allows for an accelerated approval process when there is a lack of alternative treatments and the product has meaningful therapeutic benefit over the existing treatment. It goes on to say that if remarkable efficacy is observed with a defined dose in the phase 2 clinical trial, the product may be considered for grant of marketing approval with post-licensure studies to gather data. With emergency use authorization come the questions of liability and compensation. The UK government moved to protect Pfizer from any legal action in case of complications arising from the vaccine. It has also added the coronavirus vaccine to the Vaccine Damages Payment Act, under which it provides £120,000 for those suffering a severe disability as a result of the vaccine if a causal link can be established in the case of a 60% and greater disablement. In India, while the new Drugs and Clinical Trial Rules of 2019 lists compensation for injuries or deaths during a clinical trial, it does not list a separate procedure under the accelerated approval process or under commercial use of the vaccine.
Nobody is forcing anyone to take a vaccine. But if the government comes out and tells that, for example, that all central government employees must take this vaccine, then it becomes the responsibility of the government to also protect them from any harm. Certain groups who are at a high risk of transmitting the disease, it should be mandatory for them. The rest of us, if I say that, oh, I have diabetes and therefore I would like to take a vaccine or not take a vaccine, I am making that choice simply based on what I perceive to be my mortality threat. So again, I don't believe it could be either fully mandatory or fully voluntary. There has to be a more nuanced approach to this. And those are exactly the things that the government planners have to plan.
Nuance, transparency and a lot of foresight, that's what we hope both the regulator and the government will have when laying down the guidelines for the rollout. That's all we have for this week. If you have questions you'd like to ask, leave them in the comments below. Until next week, stay safe.